Today we're going to be working on this shadow box. I already went ahead and started staining it with a Waverly antique wax, going all around the box, going on the outside, the front, and on the inside edges of the box. I then take a wipey, which you don't see here, and I wipe off the excess. Next, I go ahead and give it a thorough dry with the heat gun. We're going to be using Folkart's Cottage White, but before we do that, we're going to go ahead and rub wax all around our box on the outside and the inside, making sure all of it is covered. After that, we will be giving our box a coat of the Folkart Cottage White. I did put painter's tape on the inside in the middle because I don't want that part to have any paint on it. Once this is done, we go ahead and make sure that the front is also covered, giving it a good coat of the Cottage White paint. We go ahead and dry this really well. Once that's done, we go ahead and take our scraper, and we're going to start scraping off most of our paint, giving it a chippy look. We go on the inside of the box, and then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the front of the box, making sure that it has a nice chippy look on there. And then we will do the same exact thing on the top, and that's what we're doing here. Once that's all done, we take our gator sander and we sand off the excess, going around the whole shadow box again. We make sure everything is done. Then we do the same thing. We sand it off on the inside, making sure to get rid of all that excess paint. We then go ahead and brush it off. Make sure that there's no particles on there. And then we go ahead and remove our painter's tape from the middle of the box. We're now going to take our Folkart Cottage White, and we're going to give the middle of our box an even coat of paint, making sure that we cover. We don't have to cover the edges because I will be putting a border on there. Once that's done, we are going to dry it off really well. And then we are just going to go ahead and sand it off if we hit the edges with some paint. Okay, next we're going to clean our surface because I made a mess. And once that's done, that's what our box looks like. We're now going to get ready to apply our rice paper. This is the rice paper that we'll be using today. This is from Decoupage Queen. It was an 8.5 by 11. I did cut it down to size to fit the inside of my box. I absolutely love this print. We're gonna go ahead now and put a nice thin even layer of Mod Podge in the middle of our shadow box. Once that's done and it's nice and even, we are going to take our rice paper print, and we're going to go ahead and apply it to the middle of our box. we're going to take our hand and we're going to go ahead and smooth it out, making sure that we don't have any bubbles in there or wrinkles. Although this paper is excellent to work with, I still always just pat it down and smooth it out with my hands first. Once that's done, I go ahead and hit it with the heat gun. That will activate the Mod Podge. Next, we are going to go ahead and give it a top coat with our Mod Podge again, and this will seal the whole thing. Make sure that we give it a good coat. We are going to go ahead and dry it off. Make sure that it's nice and dry. And that's what it's looking like so far. I love it. I love that print. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our paint, and we have these little thread spools, and we're going to go ahead and paint them. Those are going to be our legs. And then we have these little corner pieces that I got at Temu. And we're going to go ahead and paint those as well. I have 2 legs and 4 corner pieces. Once that's done, we're going to let them dry. And we're going to go ahead and start working on our molds. I have 2 molds with me today. The first mold, I'm going to be using air dry paper clay for this. I love this clay. It's really easy to work with. And I keep a piece of wet napkin in there so it doesn't get dry on me. And the first mold that we're going to be working with is just a decorative mold that I'm going to be putting on the outside of my box. So you see me there, I'm just using my fingers to put the clay in there. I like working with my hands better than a scraper. I have more control that way. So once I get it all nice and smooth and I scrape off the excess with my fingers, I will go ahead and gently pry the mold away from the clay, just gently, and then I flip it over and it pops right off. And there goes my first mold. I put that to the side and I go ahead and do a second one. Okay, now that the second one is done, I'm going to go ahead and start working on my border. So this is my IOD mold, and these borders are going to go on the inside of my box. We're going to be using that one, okay? I love my IOD molds. They're excellent to work with. So I take my clay and I make a snake with it. I roll it between my hands until I have a long snake shape. I go ahead and I put it inside my mold, and I start tapping it with my fingers, making sure that everything is nice and filled in there. And I again just take my finger, scrape off the excess. I tap it down, make sure that everything is nice and smooth and even, and that the clay has filled the mold thoroughly. I pry it gently, I flip it over, and there goes my first border. I repeat this 4 more times. Just make sure that it's, you know, it's nice, like a snake shape, nice and long. And you just go ahead and start tapping it into your border, smoothing it out, and getting rid of the excess clay. I'll be making 2 more of those. Okay, that's my 4th one. Once that's done, I'm sorry, once that's done, I take my shadow box and I'm going to go ahead and start applying my border. And what I do here is that I put it inside the shadow box and I go ahead and measure it, and then I take my X-Acto knife and I trim it down so that it goes from one end of the shadow box to the other end. Once that's done, I take my Titebond glue and I go ahead and apply a thin layer of the Titebond. You don't want a lot, just a thin layer. And then I take a brush and I go ahead and smooth it out, making sure that the whole thing is covered with the glue. You don't want it thick, you just want a nice thin layer on there. I then go ahead and put that first piece in there, and I make sure that it's nice and close to the edge. And then I take a clean brush and I go ahead and start wiping off any excess glue that I might have on there. That's what it looks like. I use a wet wipey to just clean off the brush and keep getting rid of any excess glue that I might have. I go ahead and do the rest of my borders the same way. I trim it off. I then go ahead and add the Titebond. And by the way, I love Titebond for adhering molds to anything. It just works really well. I go ahead and smooth it out with my brush, making sure it's nice and covered, the whole thing, nice and smooth. I go ahead and press it against the edge of my shadow box, making sure that it's nice and close to the edge. I go ahead and take my clean brush and I get rid of any excess glue. I clean it off with my wet wipey. And I go ahead and there it goes. That's what it's going to look like. We're not done yet, but that's what it's going to look like. I then go ahead and take my decorative pieces and I do the same thing. I put the glue on there and I take my glue brush and brush it on there, making sure it's nice and smooth and that the whole thing is covered, coated with the glue. And this piece is going to go on the bottom. I go ahead and put it on there, make sure that it's centered, make sure that I'm happy with it. Tap it down gently. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my second piece and do the same thing. And this piece, I'm going to put it on the top. I go ahead and put it on there, make sure that it's nice and centered, make sure that I'm happy with the way it looks, get rid of any excess glue, tap it down gently, and then we have to let this dry I let it dry for a couple of hours. We're going to be attaching that doorknob to the top and our legs. Okay, so we're back. I let this dry overnight just to make sure that everything was good and dry for our next step. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to go ahead and apply the antique wax in brown from Waverly. And I'm going to go ahead and apply that all around the inside of my frame where we put our molded borders. I'm going to go ahead and do all four sides and make sure that I get into all the nooks and crannies of my molded borders. Once that's done, I'm going to take a wet wipey and I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the excess of that wax. And I'm going to go all around the frame and wipe the wax off from the molds, making sure that everything, the wax gets into every nook and cranny. Okay, that's what it looks like. I'm just going to go over it one more time, just make sure that I'm happy with the way it looks. I'm going to go ahead and grab another clean wipey. And now I'm going to take my wax again. And now I'm going to go ahead and apply that antique wax to the decorative molds that we made yesterday. And I'm going to go ahead and apply it to the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and wipe it off with my wipey again. And wipe off all the excess. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead now and do the same thing with the four corners that I attached to the frame. And I'm going to apply the antique wax to those as well. Again, I'll take my wipey and I'll wipe off the excess wax off of every corner. Okay, there. That's how it's going to look. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to go ahead and apply Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in brown. And I'm going to be applying that to the edges of my frame, both on the outside and on the inside, just to give it an extra antique old look. And I'm just going to go ahead and apply it to the edges. And then I can dab it with my finger. If I get too much on there, I can go ahead and wipe it off. It's not a big deal. And I'm going to go all around the frame and apply this wax. It just gives it a nice distressed look. Once I do the outside, I'll come in and do the inside of my frame, all around the edges of the inside. Just making sure that I'm happy with the way it looks. I'm just going to hit this side one more time since I wiped some of it off. I'll hit it again. And then I'll just go around. Oops. I'll just go around with my finger and I'll blend it in again. Okay. Once that's done, we are going to go ahead and attach our feet. So I already went ahead and chippied up our feet as well. And right now I'm just applying some of that Best Dan wax to my doorknob that I'm going to be putting on the top. So I'm going to take some of this Tight Bond all-purpose glue, and I will be attaching my two legs to the bottom of the frame. So what I'm doing now is that I am applying a little bit of that Tight Bond to the bottom of my legs, and then I'm dabbing it with a little bit of the hot glue, and I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the bottom of my frame. And I'm just gonna give it a few seconds just to make sure that it's attached on there. The hot glue will keep the leg in place until the Tight Bond dries. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other leg, put a little bit of hot glue and attach it to the bottom of the frame. Just hold it there for a couple of seconds. Make sure that it's on there good. Okay. The last thing that we'll be doing is that we're going to go ahead and attach our doorknob to the top of our frame. So I'm going to put some hot glue on there, and I'm just going to go ahead and attach it. And I'll get rid of the any extra hot glue with my brush. Make sure it's on there really good. And there we go. There's our floral frame. I love it. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and it looks like a beautiful antique.